Hi guys, welcome to part 4 of our cruising tips of the Caribbean. For those that haven't seen our cruising tips so far, where we covered the Med and the Atlantic crossing, this is a series that we put together in the hope to give you the information we wish we had before we started cruising some of these areas. And just some really helpful tips on logistics, things like where to get food, where to get water, what are the best places, what kind of boat supplies you might need, how you could prepare your boat better for those places, and to maybe give you a little bit of a comparison between those different areas. Because we haven't cruised the entire Caribbean or the entire Mediterranean, these are snapshots. So if you haven't checked out the ones so far, check out our ones on the Mediterranean, check out our ones on the Atlantic crossing. We're going to dive into the Caribbean. And after that, we're going to cover like Panama, the Galapagos, the Pacific crossing, French Polynesia, all the way back to Oz. So yeah, I really hope you find these videos interesting, informative. If you have any questions, comments, chuck them in the comment section below as we're going through the movie. Make sure you give us a big thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. So guys, let's jump in. While the food was scarce, so was affordable internet. Again, something that really took us by surprise after being so blessed in the Mediterranean with cheap, affordable internet. There is generally 2 carriers throughout the whole Caribbean. You have Flow and you have Digicel. Generally, both of them operate in all islands and they have varying coverage between islands. There is not one operator that covers the whole Caribbean entirely. So you're often chopping and changing between the two, which can get a little frustrating, but we really couldn't believe how expensive it was. When we first arrived in St. Lucia, the deal they had was $40 per gig. And that really took us by surprise. We did end up finding that in town, we could find then Digicel was a little bit cheaper, but that was often the price between $20 and $40 per gig of data. And the prices really dramatically changed between islands. Again, the French islands were great. I don't know why. I can't explain why that the same company is selling them for different prices throughout the whole Caribbean. There was Wi-Fi scattered throughout the Caribbean, really varying qualities of the speed. We found it a real challenge, especially for being uploading videos and whatnot. We really had to start reconsidering how we did that. And the reason was because we couldn't find great Wi-Fi. Because we couldn't find great Wi-Fi, we really relied on our phones for like a 3G data connection. That was what we relied on most. And then our sat phone. We'd expected to be able to turn our sat phone off in the Caribbean and stop paying for the plan. But it actually turned out a godsend to have, because there was a lot of times when we really needed that sat phone to download the weather, download emails, talk to friends and family. So the most consistent and reliable was our sat phone. I know the sat phone has its own constraints, but I would recommend keeping that on throughout the Caribbean. And just limit your expectations to what you're going to be able to achieve on Wi-Fi there. We don't really have a lot of suggestions on how you could do it any better. We do know some people had the Google Fi SIM on their phone. That does seem like a really great option now for traveling internationally. It's not something we can do, but for those who can, I think it could be a good option. Other than that, just go easy on your 3G and have limited expectations on what you're going to be able to do there. And when you do find good Wi-Fi, take absolute advantage of it, because you don't know when the next opportunity is going to be. Getting to the Caribbean for us was an exciting time because it offered way more water activities for us to do, and one of them was fishing, and we were really excited to get stuck into a lot more trawling behind the boat and also quite a bit of spear fishing. One thing we didn't expect was ciguatera. It wasn't actually something that I was privy to before arriving in the Caribbean, and is now something I'm really aware of. For those that don't know what ciguatera is, it is basically a toxin that starts in the polyps of coral. It is then eaten by the small fish in the coral, which are then preyed on by the bigger fish and the predatorial fish, and that toxin makes its way up the food chain. While the toxin itself doesn't seem to be that bad for the fish, it is super bad for humans. And if you get ciguatera poisoning, you're going to really wish you didn't. Basically, it makes your whole body and joints ache. It will be violent vomiting, violent diarrhea, your body cramping, really bad headaches, it can last days and weeks. And for really severe cases, it can last up to years. And when I say it's lasting up to years, the effects of it can last that long, but also you're not able to eat fish for at least a year or two before that toxin is out of your body. Because it's an accumulative toxin in your body, it can take a long time to get it out, and there is no cure for it. But definitely do your own research into ciguatera poisoning. It is something that you must know if you're going to be out there fishing and spearfishing, because it really forces you to know your fish and where to do it. Now, not every island has ciguatera. It's often hard to find out where it is and where it is not, but the guides often have it, and there's quite a bit online as to where the ciguatera poisoning is and where known cases of ciguatera have occurred. So definitely do your research on where it is and where it is not. Most of your pelagic species, which are like your deep water species, so your tunas, your mahis, your wahoos, your sailfishes, those are generally all safe because they're not feeding on these coral fish. They're out in the deep sea. So if you're catching those kind of pelagic species, and they're the ones you should be targeting, you're generally going to be safe from ciguatera. But it's really your reef fish. So the fish like your barracudas, your snappers, your groupers, your jackfish, those predatory fish around the reef, they're the ones you really need to be worried of. And definitely do your own extensive research into what fish you see safe and what ones you don't, but definitely avoid predatory reef fish. Also, there are quite a few marine reserves and no-take zones in the Caribbean. They're often on your charts, but definitely do your own research online, and it can be something often just found on the internet of just like Googling, St. Lucia Marine Reserves or fishing and spearfishing in Dominica. It'll come up pretty quickly as to where and where you can't be spearfishing and fishing. While it can put a bit of a dampener on your fishing, it definitely makes for pretty abundant ecosystems and really great diving and snorkeling around the reefs. So that's a positive of this. But where you do find the areas that you can be spearfishing, go for it and have some fun. Some of these zones that we know of are in Sabre. Sabre itself is an entire marine reserve. You actually need a license for spearfishing. There's definitely parts of St. Lucia, Nevis, Dominica, Martinique and Antigua that have marine reserves and were no-take zones. In terms of trawling behind the boat, I thought we'd share a bit of our success. The best lures that we used were our blue and green squids. They were just the soft squids and soft lures that you trawl behind the boat. And then also our other really great lure was the red and white diving lure. We caught some really great fish on that throughout the Caribbean. So blue and green squids, red and white diving lure worked really well trawling behind the boat. One fish not to worry about spearing is the lionfish. Now, while these are a poisonous fish, they actually make for good eating. So just be careful as you're spearing them and how you're handling them. But the thing about them is they're an invasive species to the Caribbean and they're taking over. And they're actually doing a lot of damage to the reefs and to the ecosystems there. They're an introduced species and they really are everywhere. So where possible, if you see them, take them out and don't be afraid to eat them. A lot of countries actually have action plans in place to reduce their populations. So maybe do a little bit of research onto how you can help out with that. But yeah, don't be afraid of taking a lionfish if you see one. And they're generally safe from ciguatera. Guys, that's the end of part 4 of the cruising tips for the Caribbean. Next up, we're going to be talking about Panama, the Sandblast, Galapagos, the South Pacific, and the Pacific Crossing. So I hope you're excited for those. Guys, if you've enjoyed these videos, please give us a thumbs up. Please leave a comment below for me and for the other cruisers out there. If you have any other comments, questions, queries, or information that could help other people, make sure you drop it below. If you have not subscribed already, please subscribe now to allow notifications for more of these movies. And if you want to support the journey, consider becoming one of our patrons and supporting us through that. I really hope you're enjoying these, and I hope you're looking forward to the next ones coming out soon. Until then, bye guys.